The new CFO displayed my salary on screen and called me overpaid in front of 21 executives. He said, $320,000 is above market value. I quietly resigned that afternoon. By Monday morning, 9 major clients terminated their contracts. 16 days later, 47% of their revenue vanished. Hey Reddit, grab your coffee, maybe grab a snack too, because this one's a ride. This is the story of how a CFO with an MBA from somewhere expensive and exactly zero common sense torched a $500 million company to prove he was smarter than everyone else. Spoiler alert, he absolutely wasn't. My name's Harper, I'm 39, and for 15 years I was the invisible foundation holding Apex Forge Industries together. Not the kind of work that gets you on magazine covers or keynote speeches. The boring, unglamorous, absolutely critical kind that keeps $511 million in aerospace contracts from evaporating overnight. You know those people who work behind the scenes, making sure the machinery doesn't fall apart while everyone else takes the credit? That was me. Except nobody took credit because nobody even understood what I did. They just saw the revenue numbers go up every year and assumed it happened by magic. Then I left. And suddenly it became real clear real fast that it wasn't magic at all. Let me back up. When I started at Apex Forge in 2009, the company was hanging on by its fingernails. They'd just pivoted from industrial fabrication to aerospace components, and the transition was brutal. Margins were razor thin. Client relationships were basically non-existent. Half the contractors were ready to bail because nobody at Apex had a clue how aerospace manufacturing actually worked. See, aerospace isn't like selling widgets. You can't just ship parts and invoice clients and call it a day. These are defense contractors, commercial airline suppliers, private aerospace firms. They're not buying components. They're buying reliability, trust, the absolute certainty that when they need something, you'll deliver it exactly right, exactly on time, with zero room for error. Because in aerospace, mistakes don't just cost money. They ground planes. They delay production lines. They get people fired. One missed shipment can cascade into millions in losses. So when clients sign contracts in this industry, they're not just evaluating your manufacturing capability, they're evaluating you, the person. Can they trust you when things go wrong? Will you answer the phone at 11 p.m. on a Friday when their production line goes down? Will you personally walk them through the hangar floor to verify specs when they're nervous about a delivery? That's what I did. For 15 years. My official title was Senior Director of Strategic Client Partnerships. Sounds fancy and vague, right? What it actually meant was I spent a decade and a half being the human firewall between demanding aerospace clients and a manufacturing company that cycled through 6 different CEOs, 4 major restructurings, and more efficiency initiatives than I could count. I built the relationships. I learned every client's quirks, preferences, fears. The ones who refused to sign contracts unless I physically showed up to their facility. The ones who only trusted me to explain why a delay wouldn't destroy their timeline. The ones who'd been burned by previous suppliers and needed constant reassurance that we wouldn't let them down. I knew their businesses better than some of their own employees did. I knew which contracts had tight margins and which ones had flexibility. I knew who needed handholding and who just wanted results. I knew exactly when to push and when to back off, and I delivered. Every single time. Over 15 years, I grew our aerospace portfolio from $47 million to $511 million in annual contracts. My personal book of business represented 42% of Apex Forge's total revenue. I had the numbers memorized down to the dollar. Every client, every margin, every renewal cycle, every risk factor. The company grew around what I built. We went from a struggling regional supplier to a nationally recognized name in aerospace manufacturing. Board meetings featured PowerPoint presentations about our strategic market position and industry dominance. They sent congratulatory emails when we hit revenue milestones. Nobody ever asked how those milestones happened. They just enjoyed the results. I never celebrated. Honestly, I barely had time. By the time one quarter closed, I was already 3 moves ahead planning the next round of renewals, anticipating problems, building contingency plans. That's how you maintain $500 million in contracts. You don't coast. You don't relax. You anticipate everything. The work wasn't glamorous. It was long hours in warehouses, red-eye flights to client sites, endless spreadsheets tracking delivery timelines and production schedules, phone calls at midnight because someone's supply chain hit a snag and they needed solutions right now. Weekends spent reviewing technical specs so I could explain them in plain English to clients who weren't engineers. But I took pride in it. I took pride in watching Apex Forge grow from barely surviving to genuinely thriving. I took pride in the fact that our client retention rate was 96%. I took pride in knowing that when clients thought about aerospace component suppliers, they thought about me. Somewhere along the way, though, the board forgot how those relationships actually worked. They started looking at spreadsheets instead of people, cost centers instead of partnerships, overhead instead of trust. When the new leadership team arrived, I knew what was coming. I'd seen this script before. New executives always show up with their shiny MBAs and their consulting firm credentials, absolutely convinced they can optimize things they don't understand. They mistake complexity for inefficiency. They see someone getting paid $320,000 and immediately assume it's bloat without ever asking what that person actually does or what value they generate. They think revenue just happens, that clients are interchangeable, that relationships can be replaced with processes, and they're always wrong. Ethan Walsh was the latest savior, our new CFO. He came from Bennett Sterling Consulting, one of those firms famous for parachuting into struggling companies, slashing costs, and calling it a turnaround. The kind of place that teaches you 80 different ways to eliminate headcount without technically lying about it in the press release. His first week at Apex, Ethan announced that our compensation models were severely out of alignment with market benchmarks, and that we needed immediate structural correction to remain competitive. Translation: we're paying people too much, and I'm about to fix that. I wasn't worried at first. My numbers were bulletproof. I knew exactly what each client brought in, what our profit margins were, how much value I personally generated. Any competent CFO would look at my portfolio and realize that paying me $320,000 to manage $215 million in contracts was one of the best investments Apex had ever made. 320,000 sounds like a lot until you do the actual math. I was generating $215 million in annual revenue. That's a 671-to-1 return. You could pay me twice that amount and it would still be a bargain. But Ethan Walsh wasn't competent. He was ambitious. And there's a massive difference. Within his first 3 weeks, anonymous spreadsheets started circulating through the company. Salary comparisons, performance metrics, industry benchmarking data. Someone was leaking them intentionally because suddenly, everyone in the building was calculating their worth in nervous whispers. The atmosphere shifted almost overnight. Conversations dropped to murmurs when Ethan walked by. Every meeting turned into a performance where people tried to prove their value. Self-preservation mode kicked in across every department. I watched department heads who'd been confident and decisive suddenly start second-guessing basic decisions. I watched people who'd worked at Apex for a decade start polishing their resumes. I watched the entire company tense up like prey animals, sensing a predator. Ethan moved through the building like he owned it, always carrying some report, always rehearsing some speech, always planting little verbal landmines in casual conversations. When he stopped by my office 3 weeks in, he gave me that smile. You know the one. The smile executives wear when they've already formed their opinion, and they're just going through the motions of pretending to listen. He scanned my wall of industry awards like they were evidence in an audit. Harper Bennett, right? The client whisperer. Impressive portfolio you've built here. Client whisperer. That's what people called me. It started as a joke and somehow stuck. I never loved the nickname, but I didn't fight it either. Thank you, I said. We'll be conducting comprehensive benchmarking over the next few weeks to ensure compensation structures and performance outputs are in proper alignment across all departments. Benchmarking, compensation structures, performance outputs, proper alignment, corporate speak for, I'm building a case to cut your pay. I'd been through enough restructurings to recognize a setup when I heard one. Ethan wasn't evaluating. He was hunting. By his third week, the whispers had turned into quiet panic. He was in HR constantly, requesting payroll data under the banner of transparency and operational efficiency. HR complied because that's what HR does when new leadership shows up with authority. They hand over the data and hope they're not next on the chopping block. Ethan started scheduling one-on-one meetings with department heads, 30 minutes each. No agenda shared beforehand. People would come out looking pale and shaken, refusing to talk about what happened inside. I stayed quiet, kept my head down, focused on my clients. My instinct told me this wasn't actually about efficiency or market alignment or any of the corporate buzzwords Ethan kept using. This was about power, about control, about Ethan establishing dominance by taking down someone visible. He didn't just want balanced books. He wanted everyone to understand that he was in charge now and that nobody was safe, no matter how valuable they thought they were. That Friday, he rolled out his first internal newsletter. Subject line: building a leaner future. The entire thing read like corporate poetry. Lots of flowery language about aligning people with performance and embracing change and sustainable competitive advantage. One paragraph stood out. In the coming weeks, we'll be addressing legacy compensation structures that no longer reflect current market realities. Departments with above-market pay scales will serve as examples for operational recalibration across the organization. I read that 3 times. Legacy compensation structures, above-market pay scales, operational recalibration. Translation: someone's getting made an example of, and that someone is probably you. I'd become the target. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ethan had been at Apex for 3 weeks. In that time, he'd attended exactly 0 client meetings, hadn't been present for a single contract renewal, hadn't sat in on one partnership call, hadn't visited a facility, hadn't met a single one of the people whose money was paying his salary. He didn't know that the clients he was so eager to measure in percentages were human beings who'd built personal relationships with me over a decade. He didn't understand that aerospace contracts aren't held together by paper and signatures. They're held together by trust. One of my oldest clients, Raymond Torres at Patriot Defense Systems, once told me something I never forgot. "Harper, we don't do business with Apex Forge. We do business with you. If you left tomorrow, we'd have to seriously reconsider this partnership." That's not arrogance. That's reality. In relationship-driven industries, people are the product. The components are almost secondary. Clients buy confidence. They buy the certainty that when something goes wrong, the person they trust will fix it. That kind of loyalty doesn't show up in Excel spreadsheets. It doesn't fit neatly into Ethan's market benchmark models. It can't be optimized or automated or replaced with a process. But Ethan didn't understand that, and he was about to pay dearly for his ignorance. It happened on a Thursday afternoon in late March, March 27th to be exact. I'll never forget that date. Ethan had scheduled what he called a quarterly leadership alignment session, which should have been my first warning because nobody talks like that unless they're about to do something terrible. I walked into the boardroom at 2:58 p.m. I had my coffee. I had my notebook. I was expecting another hour of meaningless corporate jargon about cutting costs without cutting corners and aligning stakeholders and all the other nonsense executives say when they don't actually know what they're doing. 21 people were in that room. The full executive team. Senior directors from every department. Even a few people I didn't recognize. Expensive suits. Serious faces. The conference table was that polished kind that reflects your anxiety right back at you. The projector screen was already on. Title slide, Operational Efficiency Through Market Alignment. I sat down. Ethan stood at the head of the table wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's mortgage payment. Navy blue. Perfect fit. Tie pin. The works. He smiled. Not a friendly smile. The kind of smile a predator gives right before it pounces. "Thank you all for being here," he began. Voice smooth. Rehearsed. "Today we're addressing critical structural inefficiencies that have hindered our competitive positioning in an increasingly demanding marketplace. Corporate speak for, someone's about to get destroyed." He clicked to the next slide. A bar graph comparing salaries across different departments. My stomach tightened. I knew where this was going. He clicked again. My name appeared on the screen. Harper Bennett, in 48-point font. Bold. Impossible to miss. Next to it, my salary. $320,000 annually. The room went dead silent. Not the thoughtful kind of silence. The horrified kind. The kind where everyone's holding their breath waiting to see if you'll survive what's about to happen. 21 people staring at me. At my salary. Displayed like I was a problem to be solved. A line item to be eliminated. Ethan let it hang there. Made direct eye contact with me. Let everyone marinate in the discomfort for a few seconds. Then he spoke. "I'm sorry, Harper, but this salary is indefensible." My hands went cold. I forced myself to keep breathing normally, to not react, to not give him the satisfaction of seeing me flinch. $320,000 represents a 47% premium over market rate for equivalent roles in our sector. According to our extensive benchmarking across 23 comparable organizations, senior client partnership positions in aerospace manufacturing average $217,000 annually. He clicked to another slide. More graphs, more numbers, all designed to make me look like I was stealing from the company. This represents a $103,000 annual overpayment. This kind of structural bloat is exactly what prevents organizations from achieving sustainable growth and maintaining competitive margins. He wasn't talking to me. He was performing, showing everyone in that room that he had the courage to make tough decisions, that he could take down the person everyone thought was untouchable. that nobody was safe if they weren't aligned with his vision. We've conducted comprehensive analysis of role requirements, performance metrics, and industry standards. While we acknowledge Harper's historical contributions, fiscal responsibility requires us to make difficult choices. Historical contributions. Like I was already past tense. Like I was a relic. Someone coughed. Another person looked down at their notes like they'd suddenly become fascinating. A woman across the table actually looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I sat there, silent, watching this man reduce 15 years of relationship building, client retention, revenue generation, and absolute dedication to a number he could slash to make himself look good. Moving forward, Ethan continued, clicking to the next slide, we'll be restructuring this role to align with industry standards. We've designed a new organizational model that maintains client coverage while achieving fiscal efficiency. The new org chart appeared on screen. My position was gone, replaced by 2 junior roles, both at $118,000 each. The math was beautiful if you didn't actually understand anything. He'd save $84,000 annually while doubling the headcount to show he was investing in talent development. Any MBA professor would applaud the efficiency. Any MBA professor who'd never actually built anything that mattered. We appreciate Harper's tenure, Ethan said, his voice taking on this patronizing tone that made my blood boil. But organizational evolution requires us to evolve compensation structures accordingly. This isn't personal. It's simply responsible management, not personal. Sure, that's why he displayed my salary to 21 people. That's why he used phrases like indefensible and bloat to describe my work. That's why he designed an entire presentation around humiliating me. The meeting continued. More slides, more corporate jargon, more plans for restructuring and realignment and optimization. I didn't hear any of it. I was too busy realizing what Ethan didn't. He'd just made the biggest mistake of his professional life. He'd publicly humiliated the person who built 42% of the company's revenue. The person who held relationships that couldn't be transferred or automated or replaced. The person whose clients didn't do business with Apex Forge at all. They did business with me. And Ethan had just shown them all exactly how much Apex valued those relationships. The meeting ended at 3:47 p.m. People filed out avoiding eye contact. Nobody said a word to me. That's what fear does. Ethan had been CFO for 3 weeks, and everyone already knew that crossing him meant career suicide. I walked back to my office, closed the door, sat down at my desk. For exactly 60 seconds, I let myself feel it. The anger, the humiliation, the exhaustion of giving everything to a company that just reduced me to overhead they could cut. 60 seconds of feeling sorry for myself. That's all I allowed. Then I stood up and made a decision. I pulled up my resignation letter template. One I'd kept updated for years, just in case. Changed the date. Changed a few details. Added one sentence. Effective immediately, I resigned from Apex Forge Industries. Thank you for the opportunity. No explanation. No emotional appeal. No anger. Just done. I hit send at 3:52 p.m., emailed it to HR, copied the executive team, including Ethan. Then I started packing my office. 15 years fit into 2 cardboard boxes. Awards I didn't care about anymore. Photos that meant nothing now. A coffee mug someone gave me years ago that said, Client Whisperer in fancy script. I left it on the desk. Whoever took over this office could have it. By 4:15 p.m., I was walking out of the building with my 2 boxes. Phone already buzzing with confused messages from colleagues. I ignored them all. I got in my car, drove home. The entire drive I was completely calm. No crying, no anger, just this strange clarity. At home, I made myself some tea, sat on my couch, stared at the wall for maybe 20 minutes. Then I picked up my phone and started making calls. Not to vent, not to complain, not to badmouth Apex Forge. Just to inform. First call was to Raymond Torres at Patriot Defense Systems. $38 million annual contract. We'd worked together for 12 years. I had his personal cell number memorized. He picked up on the second ring. Harper, how are you? Hey Raymond, quick heads up. As of today, I'm no longer with Apex Forge. Just wanted you to hear it from me before it becomes official news. Silence. Long silence. Then, what happened? Leadership changes, new direction. It wasn't a good fit anymore. Harper, you're the only reason Patriot stayed with Apex through 3 different CEOs and 2 ownership changes. If you're gone, we need to seriously reassess this partnership. I understand. Do whatever's best for Patriot. Where are you going? Haven't decided yet. Taking a few days to figure it out. Call me the second you land somewhere. The minute you do, I want to have a conversation. I made 8 more calls that night. Same calm tone, same simple message, same response from every single client. By Friday morning, my phone was ringing off the hook. Not from former colleagues trying to figure out what happened, from clients. I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed to let them sit with it. Let them realize what my absence meant. Saturday morning, I got a LinkedIn message. Ashley Morgan, CEO of Sterling Ridge Group, mid-sized aerospace manufacturer based in Houston. We'd met at industry conferences over the years, respected each other professionally, but never worked together. Her message was direct. Harper, heard through the grapevine you're no longer with Apex. We should talk. I've been trying to break into defense aerospace contracts for 2 years and keep hitting walls. You built those relationships. I'll pay whatever it takes to bring you on board. I read it 3 times. Then I responded, coffee Sunday morning? We met at a place in downtown Portland. Small cafe, quiet corner table. Ashley got right to the point. I'm not going to waste your time with corporate romance. I know what you're worth. I know what you built at Apex. I want you at Sterling Ridge. What are you offering? $340,000 base salary, full benefits package, 4% equity stake, complete autonomy over client partnerships and team structure. Build whatever you think works. I just want access to the relationships you have and the expertise you bring. I looked at her. You understand those relationships are personal, right? They're not company assets I can just transfer. They're built on trust. I understand that's exactly why I'm offering you equity. Because I know you'll build the same thing at Sterling Ridge that you built at Apex. And when you do, I want you to benefit directly from that value. Smart woman. We negotiated for 90 minutes. She matched every point I raised. By the time we finished our second round of coffee, I had a verbal agreement for $340,000 base, 4% equity, full autonomy over hiring and strategy, and a clause that gave me final say on all client-facing decisions. I signed the contract Monday morning at 9 a.m. By Monday afternoon, my phone was ringing again. This time from Apex Forge. First call came at 2:14 p.m. Jennifer from HR. I could hear the panic in her voice before she even finished her first sentence. Harper, we need to discuss your resignation immediately. Can you come in for an exit interview this afternoon? No. Please, Harper. The executive team is very concerned about the timing and the way this happened. We'd like to understand your reasons for leaving. There may have been some miscommunication about the restructuring plans that we can clear up. I almost laughed. Miscommunication. Like displaying my salary on a screen in front of 21 people and calling it indefensible was some kind of accident. Jennifer, I think Ethan made everything exceptionally clear on Thursday. There's nothing to discuss. But the board feels there might have been a misunderstanding about the scope of the proposed changes. They'd like the opportunity to present alternative options that might address your concerns. There aren't any alternatives. I've accepted another position. I'm done with Apex. Silence on her end. Then, you've already accepted another job? It's only been 4 days. I've been in this industry for 15 years, Jennifer. When you're good at what you do, opportunities don't take long to materialize. I could practically hear her scrambling to figure out what to say next. Can you at least tell me where you're going? For our records? No. I hung up. My phone rang again 15 minutes later. Different number. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. Then again. By the end of Monday, I had 7 missed calls from various Apex executives, each increasingly desperate. Tuesday morning brought a new tactic. The CEO himself, William Richardson, called my cell. I actually picked up that time because I was curious what he'd say. Harper, Bill Richardson, I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. What can I do for you, Bill? I wanted to reach out personally about your resignation. I think there's been a significant misunderstanding about last week's presentation. Ethan was conducting a broad analysis of compensation structures across the organization. The way information was presented may have been poorly executed. Poorly executed. That's corporate speak for, we realized we massively messed up, but we're not going to actually admit it. The presentation was perfectly executed, Bill. Ethan accomplished exactly what he set out to do. He made an example of me to show everyone else that nobody's safe. Mission accomplished. That wasn't the intent, Harper. I can assure you, Bill, I've been at Apex for 15 years. I've watched 3 different CEOs try to manage Ethan Walsh types who show up thinking they're going to revolutionize everything. It never ends well. This time, I'm just getting out before the crash. We don't want you to leave. You're a critical asset to this organization. Critical asset. Funny how I went from indefensible overhead to critical asset in 4 business days. I appreciate that, Bill, but I've made my decision. Can we at least discuss what it would take to change your mind? Name your price? And there it was. The moment when they realize the value of something is directly proportional to how badly they need it and how hard it is to replace. It's not about price, Bill. It's about respect. You can't put a dollar amount on that. I understand. But surely there's some arrangement we can reach that would... There isn't. I've already committed to another company. This conversation is a courtesy, not a negotiation. I hung up before he could respond. 2 hours later, Ethan called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail that lasted almost 3 minutes. I played it on speaker while I organized files in my home office. Harper, this is Ethan Walsh. I think we may have gotten off on the wrong foot last week, and I want to address that directly. I've had several conversations with the executive team and the board over the weekend, and there's unanimous agreement that we need you at Apex Forge. The presentation last Thursday was part of a larger strategic analysis that perhaps wasn't contextualized properly for that particular audience. I'd like to schedule a meeting this week to discuss a revised compensation package that better reflects your unique contributions to the organization and your irreplaceable industry relationships. I'm prepared to discuss significant adjustments to the preliminary proposals. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. I really think we can work this out to everyone's satisfaction. I deleted it without finishing the last 30 seconds. The thing about desperation is, it makes people say things they'd never say otherwise. 2 weeks ago, Ethan was publicly destroying my reputation. Now he wanted to discuss significant adjustments and unique contributions. The clients didn't need that much time to figure things out either. By Tuesday morning, the clients started moving. Raymond at Patriot Defense sent the first formal letter to Apex's executive team at 9:47 a.m. I know the exact time because he texted me a screenshot before he sent it. Effective in 30 days, Patriot Defense Systems will not be renewing our partnership agreement with Apex Forge Industries. After careful consideration of recent organizational changes and strategic direction, we've identified alternative suppliers that better align with our long-term partnership requirements and operational expectations. It was beautifully written, professional, polite, devastating. Translation: Harper left, so we're gone. I didn't ask Raymond to do it, didn't suggest it, didn't even hint at it. He made that decision entirely on his own, based on 12 years of working with me and exactly 0 years of trusting anyone else at Apex. 3 hours later, Cynthia Wu at Aerospace Dynamics Group sent her letter. $22 million annual contract, 8-year relationship. She didn't even bother with the 30-day courtesy. Her letter said effective immediately. Wednesday brought 2 more. Defense Systems International and Pacific Aviation Components. Combined $41 million in annual revenue. Both cited strategic realignment as their reason for terminating. Industry speak for, the person we actually worked with is gone. Thursday morning, I got a call from James Martinez at Sierra Flight Manufacturing. $18 million contract, 10-year relationship. He didn't bother with a formal letter, just called me directly. Harper, I need to know something straight up. Are you at Sterling Ridge? Yes. As of when? Monday. Cool. I'm sending termination papers to Apex this afternoon. Our legal team will reach out to Sterling about transitioning the contract. I'm not waiting 30 days. I'm not playing games. You built our relationship. You know our specifications better than anyone in our own company. I'm not staying with Apex just because some contract says I should. James, you don't have to do this because of me. I'm not doing it because of you. I'm doing it because it makes business sense. Working with you has saved Sierra probably $3 million over the years in avoided delays and production issues. Why would I stick with a company that just pushed out the person responsible for that value? That's not loyalty. That's stupidity. He hung up and sent the termination letter 2 hours later. By Friday afternoon, Apex had lost 9 major clients, $127 million in annual contracts, gone in 6 business days. The industry news sites started picking it up Friday evening. Major client exodus at Apex Forge following leadership changes. Trade publications ran pieces analyzing what they called unprecedented partner departures. Nobody mentioned my name in the articles. They didn't have to. Everyone in aerospace manufacturing knows how small this industry really is. Word travels fast. People talk. Within a week, every major player in aerospace components knew exactly what happened. CFO humiliates senior director over salary. Director resigns. Clients follow her out the door. Company implodes. It became the cautionary tale people whispered about in conference hallways. Ethan tried calling me 4 more times that week, each voicemail more desperate than the last. Harper, please. We need to discuss transitioning these accounts properly. Harper, the board has asked me to reach out. We're prepared to revisit the compensation conversation. Harper, you're putting people's jobs at risk here. Innocent people who had nothing to do with any of this. We need your help. I listened to each one, felt nothing, deleted them. Monday of the second week, Sterling Ridge Group made an announcement. 6 new aerospace defense contracts signed. Industry publications reported it as aggressive expansion and questioned where Sterling Ridge had found the client relationships. The contracts were half my former Apex clients. I didn't recruit them. They called me, asked where I'd landed. I told them about Sterling Ridge, introduced them to Ashley. They made their own decisions about whether to transition their business. That's how relationships work. They follow trust, not contracts. When the person they trust leaves, the paper trail means nothing. By day 16 after my resignation, Apex Forge had lost $241 million in annual contracts. 47% of their total revenue. Just gone. The emergency board meeting happened on day 17. The rumors leaked within hours. Ethan was being grilled. The CEO was scrambling. Investors were panicking. They made one last attempt to bring me back. Formal offer letter. $425,000 salary. Equity package. Corner office. Public apology from Ethan. I didn't even respond. You don't humiliate someone in front of 21 people, reduce their life's work to a PowerPoint slide, call them overpaid, and then expect them to save you when your arrogance blows up in your face. 3 weeks after I walked out, Apex announced emergency layoffs. 83 people. Entire departments dismantled to balance the catastrophic losses they'd created. The same people who sat silent while Ethan displayed my salary were now packing boxes of their own. I felt nothing watching it happen. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just this strange calm. I hadn't sabotaged anyone, hadn't whispered in anyone's ear, hadn't undermined anything. I'd simply walked away from a place that didn't value me, and the absence of what I'd built did the rest. The industry case studies started appearing around month 2. How one executive departure cost a company. $240 million was the headline in Manufacturing Today. Harvard Business Review did a deep dive titled, "The $320,000 cost cut that destroyed $400 million in revenue." They used Apex Forge as the perfect cautionary tale. What happens when executives confuse cost with value? When they mistake loyalty for leverage? When they publicly humiliate the person holding their partnerships together? Ethan Walsh was quietly removed in an emergency board session. No press release. Just gone. The CEO followed 3 months later when Apex was acquired by a larger conglomerate at about 60% of its previous valuation. Official statement blamed unexpected market conditions and industry headwinds. Everyone in aerospace knew the truth. Meanwhile, Sterling Ridge was thriving. Ashley kept every promise she made during that coffee meeting. Complete autonomy over client partnerships. Full control over hiring. Final say on strategy. She didn't just talk about trust. She demonstrated it. My first week, she handed me the keys to build my own department from scratch. No bureaucracy. No committees. No endless approval processes. Just, here's your budget. Here's your equity. Go build something that works. I started making calls. Within 2 weeks, I'd recruited 3 of my former team members from Apex. People who'd worked under me for years. People who understood relationship-based sales. People who were terrified about what would happen to them once Apex's revenue collapse triggered the inevitable layoffs. I offered them 20% raises and got out of their way. By week 3, I had 6 former Apex clients in active conversations about transitioning their contracts to Sterling Ridge. Not because I pitched them aggressively, because they called me asking where I landed and whether Sterling could handle their requirements. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Client: Harper, we heard you're at Sterling Ridge now. Me: That's correct. Client: Can Sterling handle our volume and technical specifications? Me: I wouldn't have joined if they couldn't. Ashley's built a solid operation. The manufacturing capability is there. Quality control is excellent. They just needed the client relationships to scale. Client: Can you personally guarantee the same level of service we got from you at Apex? Me: I can guarantee better. Because at Sterling, I'm not fighting internal politics or defending my value to CFOs who don't understand this industry. I'm focused entirely on what I do best, making sure your production lines never go down because of supplier issues. That pitch worked every single time. By month 2, I'd brought in 18 clients. Combined annual revenue of $187 million. Ashley nearly fell out of her chair when I showed her the numbers in our monthly review. Harper, you've added more revenue in 8 weeks than we added in the previous 3 years combined. That's what happens when you hire someone who actually built these relationships instead of just managing them. Month 3 brought another 12 clients. Month 4 brought 9 more. Some were former Apex partners making the transition. Others were completely new relationships I'd been cultivating for years, but could never quite close while at Apex because of capacity limitations or pricing issues. Sterling Ridge was hungry. They had the capacity. They had competitive pricing. They just needed someone who could open the doors. I was that someone. By month 6, my portfolio at Sterling Ridge eclipsed what I'd built at Apex. 43 clients, $294 million in annual contracts, growth trajectory that had our CFO literally running numbers twice to make sure they were real. The difference was night and day. At Apex, I spent half my energy managing internal dysfunction and proving my worth to executives who didn't understand the industry. At Sterling, I spent 100% of my energy doing what I was actually good at, building relationships, solving client problems, and driving revenue. Ashley understood something Ethan Walsh never could. In relationship-driven industries, you don't optimize the people holding the relationships. You optimize everything else around them. You give them the resources they need. You remove obstacles. You compensate them well and get out of their way. It's not complicated, but it requires leaders who actually understand what drives value instead of just staring at spreadsheets. Within a year, Sterling Ridge's growth rate had doubled. We were tracking toward $890 million in annual contracts. The board was talking about expansion into international markets. Ashley was fielding acquisition inquiries from larger companies who wanted to know how a mid-sized manufacturer had suddenly become a major player. The answer was simple, even if nobody wanted to say it out loud. They hired the person Apex Forge called Overpaid and gave her the freedom to prove exactly what she was worth. 18 months after I left Apex, Harvard Business Review published that case study. It broke down exactly how market alignment thinking can destroy relationship-driven businesses when leaders mistake Excel models for reality. My name wasn't in the headline, but everyone who mattered knew the story. I have a framed copy of that article on my desk at Sterling Ridge, not because I'm proud, more as a reminder of what arrogance costs when you forget that numbers on paper are just representations of human relationships. I kept one other thing. Someone sent me a screenshot of that boardroom slide. My name in 48-point font next to my salary in red. It hangs beside my Sterling Ridge Leadership Award. Every time I see it, I remember that silence in the room. The stares, the humiliation. Then I remember what came after. The calls. The clients following me. The calm certainty that I'd done the right thing. Revenge without lifting a finger. People ask me now what I learned. I tell them this. If a company ever tells you you're overpaid, don't argue. Don't fight. Don't try to prove your value with presentations or data. Just walk away. Let them figure out what you were actually worth. Because eventually, the same people who reduced you to a line item will watch their bottom line crumble and realize too late what they lost. When Ethan called me overpaid, I understood something crucial. Some leaders confuse cost with value. They see a salary and assume it's negotiable. They forget that behind that number is a decade of relationship building they'll never be able to replicate. Walking away wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was mine, my dignity, my expertise, my peace of mind. But life has this way of balancing the scales without you needing to do anything. When Apex collapsed under the weight of its arrogance, that wasn't my victory. That was their lesson. I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves the moment they treated a person like an expense. The real win wasn't the contracts that followed me to Sterling Ridge, wasn't the equity that's now worth a fortune, wasn't even the Harvard case study. It was waking up without resentment, knowing I didn't have to yell to be heard, that my worth didn't need defending, because the people around me already understood it. 3 months after Apex's acquisition, I got one final call, from Ethan Walsh. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Harper. His voice sounded different, smaller, exhausted. I owe you an apology. I waited. I was wrong, about everything. I thought I was optimizing costs and improving efficiency. I didn't understand I was destroying the foundation the entire company was built on. I'm genuinely sorry. I took a breath. Ethan, I appreciate that. But apologies don't rebuild trust. They just acknowledge what broke. I know. I wanted you to understand. I realize now what I cost the company, what I cost you personally. You didn't cost me anything, Ethan. You freed me. The clients didn't leave Apex because I recruited them. They left because you showed them exactly how much the company valued the relationships they'd built. That wasn't my doing. That was entirely yours. Silence on his end. Good luck with whatever comes next, I said. I hung up, deleted his contact. That was 2 years ago. Today, Sterling Ridge Group is on track to close $890 million in annual contracts. I'm VP of Strategic Partnerships. That 4% equity Ashley gave me is worth significantly more than when I signed. We built something that actually works, where people aren't line items on a spreadsheet, where relationships aren't viewed as overhead, where loyalty gets reciprocated instead of exploited. I still work long hours. Still answer my phone at midnight when clients need me. Still walk hangar floors and explain delays and build trust one conversation at a time. The difference is, I do it for a company that understands what that's worth. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.